Hello and welcome to this episode of Heart and Soul. I am Marla Wall. This is my sister Alyssa, and with us today is my wonderful husband Scotty
Hello.
Wall. So listen, we decided to do a part 2 of the abstinence video that Alyssa and I talked about. Is it antiquated or is it holy? And we decided to bring a man in on the conversation. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
So listen, love. So the last episode, Alyssa and I talked about abstinence, and she was sharing her journey that she has been abstinent for 30 years, you said? Going on 30 years, which is not our testimony.
I have some questions for you. No, but go ahead. Okay.
And one of the things that Alyssa shared is that she talked about, and I thought it'd be great to bring you in on this, because she talked about, that some of the men that she's had conversation with have been like, okay, sis, what am I supposed to do if, a woman is showing up at my door with tassels on and in her birthday suit saying happy birthday, trying to, as being a Christian and a believer, what should they do with that? And so we wanted to bring you in and get your thoughts on that.
Okay, this is going to be a great conversation. Okay, all right, okay.
So what are some of your thoughts in that?
About that situation itself?
Abstinence, is it antiquated or holy? Any of those things you want to start with?
Okay, abstinence, is it antiquated or holy? Well, I definitely believe that it's holy. If it's antiquated, well, I think you have to look at, the generations these days. I think marriage is on the decline. More people are just living together. So I think you're probably, I hate to say that it is antiquated, but, well, before I answer that, can I just ask her one question?
No.
Well, okay, here's how I see it when you talk about abstinence. And so I think you got to look at the individual. Where are they in their life? Because God plays a big part of this. I don't think anyone who is, I don't want to say unsaved, but anyone that hasn't made God the priority of their life, I don't believe that they can be abstinent. Okay. Well, that's what I believe, and I think even people who have made God the priority of their life, I think it's a challenge for them to be abstinent. Right. And we're not going that way, right? Just as you're talking about this. So, when I say I have questions for Alyssa, I really do, because I think you really are an exception to the rule. And when I see you and when I think about that, I think about, I'm not calling you a nun or any of those things.
Unicorn.
But I think it's those people who have decided that sex is not going to be a part of their life. They've made that sacrifice and that commitment unto God. I think if God is not in the equation, I don't see people doing it.
Right.
So I think, God is a key piece in that. And again, I bring it back to someone like you who's made God the priority in your life. How do you do that? Because I really think you're an exception.
Well, honestly, in the beginning, it wasn't something that I even wanted to do, because, as I said in part one, there was an addiction there. So no, I wanted to continue on with that, but I feel like my mom was watching. I'm sorry. Right then and there, I was like, "Oh Lord, my mom's gonna be watching this." I was like,
she can't say the words.
Sorry, Mom. So no. I mean, I remember crying repeatedly, saying, "God, you're setting me up to fail. I mean, why would you allow me to be exposed to this so early? and then tell me it's wrong. Well, you know, so there was a process that I had to go through. This wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna be celibate. No, it wasn't like that. So even after making the decision, I still had to fight to honor that commitment. And it didn't happen overnight. It took me years to finally get there. But what helped me to get there was my relationship with God. Whether or not I was going to honor this commitment to Him for the rest of my life, or whether or not I was just going to put me ahead of that. But once I made that decision that it was just going to be Him, and this was going to be for Him and for me, being the better version of myself, then, you know, I ain't going to say it got easier, but I got stronger.
I heard 30 years. I mean, that is a commitment, you know, and when I just think about people, I'll speak from the male perspective. Men, we're hedonistic. we're seekers of pleasure. That's who we are. And I think, you know, for women, I don't know how y'all are able to do that because I don't think just men are hedonistic. I think people in general, we're seekers of pleasure. And to say no to that, I think, I don't understand how women do.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So even in that, so when you and I came together, right? Yes. So we had our period of dating was extremely short.
And you know why. Right. No. Right.
So maybe it's not us then, because we got married in 3 months. So we were making sure we was going to be good. And walk out, because the Lord was the priority in our life. And so we wanted to honor Him. And then we were just ready to, you know, as we came together and everything like that. So, but even before that, so before we came together,
yes,
were you dating?
Okay, wait. I thought we were talking about something else. Yes, I was dating.
And I know some of the history and those kind of things, but at some point in time, you also made a decision.
Yes.
Right? You made a choice, and I think that's what Alyssa and other people do, is you make a choice. You just make a decision that God is more important, just like you said, than anything else, right? You may desire sex. You may desire, I mean, think about anything, you know, I want people who shop or shopaholics or workaholics or any of those things that are out of balance for you. You make a decision to say, I want to do something better. And I heard you say a better version of yourself. And I think that is so key, right? You made a decision to say, okay, sure, sex is pleasurable in the right standpoint as far as marriage and those kind of things. But outside of it, there's so many other things that you can lose. Right? You talked about it in the first video. You talked about, you know, unwanted pregnancies, STDs, all those kinds, and then you're giving your soul away to people, and you made a decision, that's not the life that I want to live. I don't want to be dating this person and that person. And so I understand that. And then once you're in it, you're just, because it's no longer your focus, right? So that's how I think 30 years.
And I never thought I would get here where it wasn't constantly in my mind. It wasn't constantly there. There was always a reminder in my early years, but there isn't now. Not to say I don't have desires, because I do, but I'm learning, and I say it in the present, because I think it's an ongoing journey. I'm learning to control, you know, to exercise discipline and to take control. So, yeah.
I understand, because what you just said, I'll speak for myself as a key point. You start learning control. Once you start making God the priority in your life, you start killing flesh, start saying no to flesh and those type of things. And it does change. You know, there is a spiritual thing that happens within you, you know, that you're able to deny flesh and your relationship with God and the intimacy with God. And I think I shared this with you before. With men, we tend to struggle, right? We're visual, right? So our eye gate, what we see, we take in and we consume and just kind of move from there. And we tend not to, put any restrictions around our eye gate, right? So men get caught up in pornography, all type of stuff. But as you find the Lord and he starts to free you from those things, you don't want to be bound and trapped by those things anymore. Right. So I get what you're saying. You don't want to be bound and trapped by those things. So you continue to press in and seek God. And so, so I understand. So when you asked me, was I dating? Yes. But even for men, and I think there's probably a misconception that most women probably think, well, men are labeled all kind of things, dogs and those type of things. And I get it from our behavior. But where we're a lot alike in terms of we want that same peace, right, that you find in the presence of the Lord. And men often don't know how to find that, right? I shared, as you and I have talked, we're good with information, we're good with instruction, but we're not so good with intimacy. And so we often try to find it, sexually and those type of things, but really it's a heart issue.
Right. I agree. Sex is not, it is not the full or sole definition of intimacy. You can have intimacy without going into that crossing that boundary there. And I think that's where a lot of us miss it. We feel that if we want to take our relationship to the next level, that level being a greater intimacy
with an individual,
right? With an individual, then sex is the only way to do it, and that is absolutely false. That, from what I'm understanding and from what I've been learning, that's a small part of intimacy. There is still ways for you to connect with the person intimately without crossing the boundaries that God has set. And that's what I want. I want that. And I want my partner to have that same mindset and that same heart. I want that so that when we do connect, when God does bring us together and we do have the opportunity to become intimate emotionally, spiritually, and all of the other ways that does not involve sex, then we can do that because there's nothing blocking. There's no obstacle that Satan could bring in between us because we have allowed God to be the center. And then on that honeymoon night, we can talk.
Right. But just like you said though, love, and I get it because as women, it's much easier for us to be intimate. Right. Outside of sex. We just speak to our mind.
Right.
We don't understand it.
Right.
Men.
Right. And so for us, we can say absolutely we can have a deeper relationship without sex and connect and for men, but like you said, if men generally aren't so good with intimacy or knowing or attributing sex to intimacy. It's that learning, right? Of learning, what is intimacy really?
Right.
And then not only learning, but how do I obtain that intimacy? Because I think probably to be successful, right, you have to be that intimacy has to come by as a sole individual between you and the Lord. You know what I mean? And when I say soul, meaning by yourself. I mean, you can't teach me intimacy. Really, you can give me some information, but intimacy is really that connection, me to God, right? So your own intimacy level for you to be whole has to be between you and the Lord.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I was just processing, you're saying you can't be taught that.
Well, you can be given instruction, right? But when it comes down to it, my intimacy with God has nothing to do with you.
Yes.
Or you.
Yes.
Right? And so you're not going to be in that intimate part between me and God.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And so the man that you're talking about or men that you're referring to, you had to learn for yourself
Mm-hmm.
to become what intimacy was for real.
But there is a teaching in that. And I mean, seeking God and asking Him and Him walking me through it. And I think it's like anything, you start to explore it to get more information and an understanding about it. Because I think for men, again, right, we go back to childhood stuff that we were all kind of taught and early age, right? Boys, you don't cry, you know, and all those different things that society teaches us. So now we're walking around, you know, the opposite of being intimate, right? You know what I mean? And that's how we've been operating. And so now, you know, lovely women like the two of you, you know, you're looking for us to meet you in that place that you were talking about, that place of intimacy, and we don't understand it, right? The most intimate we've been, right? You take us, right, from sports and, right, the things that we do, and now being, you know, physical with a female, softer and those type of things, but that's our understanding of intimacy. And now I understand deeper now after having a relationship with God what intimacy is really about. So for me, I had to be taught that because I didn't understand it.
Okay, right, and you were taught it in your relationship as you were growing with the Lord.
As I was growing with the Lord, and now being married, right? The conversations that we have, you've taught me more about intimacy, where I didn't understand that before.
Okay, you know? So I get it. I understand what you're saying. So then Alyssa could share with your gentleman friends who maybe are struggling and saying, okay, this woman is showing up at my
I can
door.
answer that question now. Yeah, let me just answer that question.
Brothers, are y'all listening?
You know, being transparent with it. With men, we know when there's an opportunity for sex, right? Generally speaking. And if we're showing up at somebody's door and they are in what you said, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, we already had an understanding that that was a possibility, right? Because, well, how do I explain it? When I say, well, here, I knew, right? When you and I started dating, you weren't going to come to the door with tassels. And that's what I mean. You have that understanding because, right, when you talk about let's go out for coffee, right, and you're having conversations and you start talking about things, men are always, we're looking to, and I'm being transparent. Can I just...
He's like, am I not gonna get?
I'm saying I'm really trying to be real. I'm saying a male generally wants sex. That's, you know, there's no two ways about it, generally speaking. And we also know generally that women want to be in a relationship. Generally speaking. Now there's exceptions, but generally speaking. So you have that dynamic of us coming together, right? Women want to be in a relationship, men want sex. So that's an easy thing that happens. And I think the conversations as you're talking, getting to know each other and those things, men are looking and trying to determine if it's going to happen and when. I think in most cases.
So when y'all sat down to have coffee, the brother was already trying to figure out.
The moment there was an invitation for coffee, I'm being honest. That's just kind of how we process. And I'm not just talking about unsaved men. I'm talking about saved men too. For me, I think it's where you're at in your walk with the Lord, right? If you're new to finding the Lord, you still have, you know, that behavior, right, of unsaved men and those type of things, and God isn't a priority. But as you know, grow in your walk, then that dynamic changes.
So when you were talking about, you know, the woman showing up at the door and the tassels and stuff like that, and you said in the beginning, what did you say? You said that you kind of knew that there would be an opportunity.
Not him.
No.
Right.
But the possibility.
The possibility. It's it's because you already scoped her out?
Yeah, that's a part of it, right? In
That's
that
what you're referring
conversation,
to?
that's what I'm referring
You knew
to.
that she would be the type of...
Well, I'm not just saying just by looking at someone that you know that. No. What I'm saying is, you know, once it's, how do I put it in a word? It's, you know, whatever you're pursuing, you know, if you're pursuing something, you're looking, you're trying to find out all about something, right? And once you start having conversation, you know, communication is a big piece of it, right? We never had a conversation where I felt like, you know, sex was going to be a part of it, right? So guys don't bring that into the conversation. And so women play a big part of that. And that's what I mean. If they've somehow expressed in some way in that conversation, you know, guys start to zero in on that.
So basically, when the woman showed up at the door, the guy already knew
that this was a possibility.
That was a possibility.
So, that being said, should the brother even continue to have a relationship or a friendship?
You know the answer to that.
Because I'm just like, okay, so then if your antenna went off in the beginning when y'all was having coffee, then is there a need to continue on when you know that this is going to... For me, there's a possibility this is going to happen.
For me, it brings it back to where are you at in your spiritual walk. I'm saying if you're new to it, you're not going to deny flesh and you're going to keep, you know, pursuing that. As you know, submit yourself unto God seriously and God is the priority, then that starts to change.
Okay. Okay. Y'all heard? Stay away from them hoochie mamas.
He said stay away from them.
But again, I think it's how we both are operating.
Right. It's
not just men. It's not just men. You know, I'm telling you, it's... I
remember
people
you
giving,
shared,
you know, they let you know that other things are possible. You know, they don't come out and say, "Hey, will you come?" So you know what I mean.
She didn't say, "I'm gonna show up on your door."
Right.
Castle.
No,
right. She ain't say nothing like that.
Right. But like I said, men know. I knew. You know, I didn't even consider that concerning you.
That's a wonderful thing.
That was then. Okay.
So this is good. So this is good. So do you think that would help? And when you have conversations with any men, to be like, all right.
So if they're coming to you and they're saying, "What should I do?"
I know, right? I need to be guarded.
Well, I'm just saying. I think you have to consider the source. So whoever that is that's coming, what do you know about that individual?
The guy.
You know what I mean? What do you know about that individual?
I know
in
enough
terms
to put
of
boundaries.
Well, that's what I mean, and that's all that I'm saying.
Like,
that's all that I'm saying. You know,
I knew enough to put up boundaries. Honestly, did. I'm just like, nah, brother. Because for me, there were red flags about this woman long before she showed up at the door.
Okay.
So if you playing games, then I don't need to play the games with you. You know, I got too much at stake. I've come too far to slip up from ignorance. You know, willful ignorance.
Right.
So yeah, no.
Right. So this is good. So any final words or anything? No?
I think we covered it.
I hope I still have some male friends out there after this.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us. And until next time, you all have a wonderful day.